Hey everybody, it's Shane from Matrix Personalized Fitness. I'm back with you today because I just posted another blog yesterday that hopefully you checked it out. It was all about interoception. It's the last piece of the sensory tools within our brain's toolbox that I'm going to be blogging about right now. And I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that. If you had gotten through the blog, you found out that this bodily system is very, very important to us. It's the sensations of our mid-region, our viscera and our organs that come up to a certain part of the brain called the insular cortex. And it's from there that we're able to control a bunch of our autonomics like breathing and digestion. However, I was going to talk to you today about that and just about how to do the breathing skills. I'm still going to get the breathing skills in there, but I was actually meeting with a colleague today, and she had mentioned that she's getting close to the age where she's going to be experiencing hot flashes. And she was reading an article about how the #1 recommended thing for hot flashes is actually a practice of yoga. And I found that very interesting because it ties directly into what I blogged about yesterday and what I'm shooting this video on today. So that little gem hidden inside the blog was this note of the insular cortex. And it's within the insular cortex that we control our feelings of warmth and cold, as well as another number of other things like itch, and as I mentioned in the blog, also the sensation of ourself, and just being aware of our own bodies and actually being a part and living within our own body. When we feel disconnected, it means things aren't working quite well. So coming back to the hot flashes portion, because the sensation of warmth within the body lives within this area, and the practice of yoga can really help influence hot flashes at that stage of life, it's really because of the breathing practice that's within yoga. If you think about it, in a yoga class, tons of breathing is a big focus, as well as you have a lot of movements that cause twisting. All of that creates sensation through your midsection, your viscera, sends it up to the insular lobe. With all that good information, the need for hot flashes and an understanding of what's now going on in the body is all becoming more relative to the brain, so you can actually slow them down or stop them. To that point, I now wanted to discuss a little bit about how we do the better breathing. The first thing to understand about belly breathing is how it actually works. So if you picture your lungs sitting up on top of you here, underneath of them is your diaphragm muscle. Your diaphragm is a dome that comes up like this. When it contracts, it gets smaller and it actually pushes downward. What that does is it draws the lungs down so that air gets sucked into your body. That's the way that we use them. That's our main breathing muscle, and that's the way that it works. Well, if the diaphragm is moving down, where are the organs going to go? The organs have to get pushed a little bit outward. They're getting compressed and moved. That's why a belly breath means the belly expanding outwards and coming back in. It's not so much about the chest rising up. So if belly breathing is something you'd like to practice, there's a really simple way to get into it, and I highly recommend starting getting into it by looking into the mirror. By placing one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest and looking in the mirror, you can try and take deep breaths, and what you're looking for is to see your bottom hand moving outward, but the top hand staying nice and still. It can be really challenging for a lot of people, but the trick is just to work on it and practice it. And again, from the side view, we can see the chest stay still as the bottom hand moves in and out. By doing this, as I mentioned, the diaphragm's descending, it's compressing the organs. When the organs get moved and shifted around in this way, it creates a lot of sensation that sends all that information back up through the vagus nerve, as I mentioned in the blog, into the insular cortex. Again, where all of these different bodily functions, autonomics, and sensations are controlled. So by doing that simple breathing drill, learning to take deep breaths, it's not something you have to do all the time, just when you're thinking about it. We can get really good information back up to the brain. It can begin to figure out what's going on in here, and it can help us with things like hot flashes, but also the other things I mentioned in the blog, like low back, neck pain, as well as a number of other chronic issues. So that wraps up the information with the blog today. I also wanted to let you know that next week I'm going to be coming back. I'm going to be talking more about this diaphragmatic breathing. So if you struggle in practicing with it this week, I'm going to give you some more pointers next week as to how to make it a little bit more explicit so that you can learn it a little bit quicker. But give it a try anyways, and then wait till next week to see if you're having any issues.